Hey, Michael, what's up?
Hey, Val, the voice Johnson. Long time no see. It's been like, what, a week or something? That must mean that it's Tuesday. Is it Tuesday?
It's Tuesday. Let's go.
Boop, 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 boop,
Hey, all right.
boop, 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 boop. I like that.
You
That's
like
like,
that,
that's
don't you?
awesome. Yeah,
I,
I
I
do love that
know.
theme song. I mean, that theme song is becoming iconic.
Oh
Iconic.
my gosh. And let me take care of the business first. This episode of Talk on Tuesdays is brought to you by NBN Connect. Learn more about how to network with the premier growth platform for established Black and urban business owners, professionals, and non for profit organizations. Let me add this to the stream. Go to mbnconnect.com. That is what's up. And we want to say hello to Mr. Springer in the chat. Thank you, Mr. Springer.
Kevin, Kevin,
Kevin,
yeah,
Kevin,
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 Kevin.
Kevin. We're trying not to throw any chairs tonight. Mr. Springer is here regulating, making sure it gets regulated.
Yeah, we're always excited to see him. And so,
And
Michael, it's
so
women. So what you got?
let me tell you. So Val, something's wrong with my TV right now.
What's wrong with your television? What's
Well,
happening?
see, what's wrong with my TV is this. Every time I go to turn on something on the TV, this documentary channel has hijacked my TV, and they keep telling me this is show about a war going on
Mm-hmm.
in Eastern Europe. And every time I go to try to watch something, they like break in with like more information about this. And really, I just want to change the channel, and I can't. I can't. Like they keep telling me about these cities I never heard of, like Kiev. I
Here.
mean, it looks like Russian. I mean, it looks like Roman numerals going around, like
Mm-hmm.
KYIV. So like the I before the V means like it's four, right? But what
Mm-hmm.
does Y mean? I
I have
don't know
no
what number
idea.
Y is.
I have no idea. I am
But
not
but
the
they keep
one.
showing me things, and you know what? The thing is, it's sad. Val the Voice Johnson. This show is really sad. Like they have pregnant women being taken out of hospital with their babies and now dead. And now and like I had just gotten through Euphoria and Succession, and I'm just like, I don't know if I need to like watch this. I'd rather watch Winning Time, on the
Okay.
Lakers. Like that's a documentary I'm willing to see. But this
So
documentary, it's on every channel.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and I'm like, who commissioned this?
I
Who
don't know.
asked for
Uh
this?
so that's news. That's
What?
that's news. That's not us. That's not what you and
Isn't this HBO Max? Like they just took over
that's
some
not
channels.
HBO Max. That
I got
is something.
Comcast. I thought it was Peacock, like
No,
Peacock Plus or
no,
something.
no. That is very
This
serious,
is
serious
actually
news.
happening.
Very serious, serious situations happening, and we are praying for the people over in Ukraine. It is completely nuts what is happening. I told you I was going through a little bit of a mini depression thinking
I
about
don't want to
what has
venture this.
happened.
I agree, and I understand what
Mm-hmm.
you're saying.
Yeah.
And I've been around people. I've lived around people. I love people who really can't. No, and I'm being serious here.
Mm-hmm.
That can't really deal with
Right.
this onslaught. I appreciate it as a journalist, former journalist, and someone watching this. I think one of the best parts of this documentary that has interrupted all of our kind of viewing has been when the young woman had the poster and she walked on a news set, which was just spewing propaganda from a Russian perspective, and her poster said "No war" in English. It had a few phrases in Russian, and then at the bottom in English it said it said something that say that all Russians don't want this, and I thought
Yeah.
that that was really really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but I agree with you. There's fatigue. And depending
Yeah.
on how old you are, I know I am old enough, I'll just speak for myself and my beautiful gray hair, is that I remember watching this before. I've seen this show before.
Hmm.
I saw it when we were when the U.S. was dropping bombs in Iraq, and we pulled. Remember when we pulled Saddam out of that hole? He was like a jackrabbit, and we had to go in the hole and like literally pull him out of a hole. He had like all this. He looked like he had been, he looked like he had been binging, and not
We
getting
don't-
any sleep.
we didn't know what he was doing. We
Yeah,
didn't know what he was
exactly.
doing.
Well, we thought he had weapons that he didn't, so that's neither here
We
nor
don't
there.
know. We don't know.
But
I
we've
didn't know.
seen these war shows before,
Hmm.
and at a point, no matter how earnest and how important the information is that is coming to us, it almost becomes like another form of entertainment, and that's where kind of media understanding of the media literacy, those type of things really needs to come into play, because um, the way you watch this, and you watch this side by side with a you know TV shows that's about humor, you watch something which is fictional drama, and then you see these tanks rolling through this city. It's hard to kind of differentiate what's actually happening, what's not. When I've talked to my students, there are times when at different sides of this war, not just the Russian side, but the Ukrainian side, they're using things like video game footage. They're mixing it in with actual coverage of what's happening. And there becomes this kind of fog of war, this kind of haze of what's happening. And it could make you depressed. I mean, if you don't give yourself a natural break and
He-
turn off your TV,
Yeah.
or
So
just kind of step away from it and continue your everyday life, which is
I
at this point not really completely affected by this war, no matter what people want to say about gas prices. It's not been impacted a lot, not the way it's been impacted by these folks in their lives. Okay, just
right.
to be fair,
So
I
I
think we
know.
can do that. We
So
have
I
to.
so I know this, and very similar to exactly 2 years ago when we were going through COVID, and
Yeah.
every single newscast was
Oh my God.
counting literally the death toll and tracking it, and
They
that
were
was the
counting
first.
dead bodies.
They were broadcasting at the very beginning of the broadcast, and it was I had to wait. I didn't even know if we saw the weather, and there was no sports being played, so the weather would interrupt it a little bit, then they would go right back to it. So
Right. Thank God for snow, right? Or rain.
so
Can
I
we talk about this rain a little bit more, right?
Yeah. So one thing that I will say, and I'm gonna you move on from the documentary, is
Well, we
if
could.
you
That's my whole point. We have to at
we
some
have
point.
to we have to
We can't keep
it
talking about this. We can't just dwell
right.
on it like this.
So the one thing that I will say is we are hopefully providing a happy space versus what's happening over the seas. And like I said, I am in prayer. I have sent money. I have talked to people, and I've done what I could, but I cannot ingest the images and the videos and things that have been coming out of the Ukraine, and I'm getting a sense of what people are saying and what people are doing. I can't ingest it because I find myself, it's like a fatigue of bad news. I was fatigued with COVID. I'm just trying to survive COVID. I literally, that's where I'm at. I do not need war fatigue. So Michael, I didn't know we were going in this direction, but let's
I
steer
think
the
it's on everybody's. I think it's on everybody's
people
mind.
thinking about it. Yeah. So we're
And
gonna steer the plane.
the other part of it is that if you
Hmm.
are you're listening to this and you have young people around you, either
Hmm.
you're a parent or you're someone in contact with those, 18 and younger, you should talk about this to them. Talk to
Mm-hmm.
them about this. Don't assume that they're just avoiding it and they don't have any interest in it and they don't care. I mean, because the danger is that they are also kind of ingesting this and worrying and not knowing what to do, and in some ways feeling helpless about it. And we got to take care of each other. I think one of the wonderful things about the podcast, the Interludes podcast, is that it's been able to give people this outlet to do, to kind of look at how do I go about doing like real self care rather than just like making sure my hair looks nice. You know, it's like actual something there to feed the spiritual side of who you are, that to edify you, to give you strength in times like this, and to make sure that you're on the right track as you move forward in your life. That's really important. It's good to have a respite from it. It's good to have an oasis from it, and I think that that's what you've been able to do, Val the Voice Johnson, with the podcast, and also with Interludes Extra, is to give people this place so that they can take care of themselves, and kind of like build up this reserve of strength in times where it needs to be called upon. And this is one of those times.
We're gonna. We had a pre-show on Clubhouse, and we had a few people show up. And right now on on our show, we're the voice of Kryptonite, aka Jerome. He was on in Clubhouse, so he's saying hello to us.
Hey, hey, yes, the voice of
Hey,
Kryptonite. Kryptonite survived after Krypton. That is true. Very valuable. Depends on how it's used, for sure.
so speaking of which, March is Women's History Month,
It
and
is.
yeah, so we're continuing to celebrate that as well as
Yes.
women's right to vote. Oh my gosh, Michael, we
Yes,
we we, we needed to have a right to vote. So
we did. All
didn't
women.
all women, all women.
We'll,
So the
we'll speak to
19th.
that in a
What do you
second.
what do
Yes.
you know about the 19th Amendment, Michael?
What do I know about the 19th Amendment?
Hmm.
That it exists, that it's important, and that partially it was a sellout that sold black women down the river
Oh my
for at least
gosh.
another 50 years.
So unfortunately, well, in 1920, which was exactly 102 years ago in August, the amendment was signed into law, and it meant that white women could vote. But unfortunately, it took, as Michael said, another 50 years, and it was the 1965 Voting
Voting Rights
Rights
Act.
Act,
Mhm.
Voting Rights Act. I'm sorry, signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson, when all women of color, Black, Latinx, Asian women all were given the right to vote. Now, the one thing that I wanted to kind of shout out, because we're in the middle of Oscar season, and yeah, there's President Johnson signing it in. A movie that kind of depicted that fight was 2014's Ava DuVernay's film called Selma. Now, we talked about this, right, Michael? We've seen this movie. What were your
Yes.
thoughts? Yeah, you what were your thoughts on this?
On Selma,
Yeah, your thoughts on Selma? Yeah.
that now in retrospect, it's a shame that it did not. It is a completely watchable film that today could be and should be shown in history classes.
Hmm.
It's something that it's accessible. It looks at Martin Luther King Jr. as a human being rather than a
Hmm.
deity. It looks at the movement at on different fronts of it, so it gives kind of support to how people help the movement on a micro and a macro level. It's beautifully told. It's great storytelling, visual storytelling, and I
Yeah.
think it's probably, as we go back and sort of watch some of these movies and look at their importance, that it will only rise over time as one of the more important movies uh, made. Period.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And that was David Oriello,
Yes.
a British actor, Common um Carmen Ejogo. And
Mm.
this was and David Oriello is a person that recommended Ava DuVernay to be the director. This was initially supposed to be a Lee Daniels production. I don't know if you remember
Thank
David.
God that didn't
Oh,
happen.
you're
We didn't get like the Butler 2.0. Whoa.
yeah. So the one thing that I will say, and this was a recent article that came out on IndieWire that talked about why we were talking. We have a audio podcast out now about women filmmakers
Me too.
and how they were nominated. This was the film that Ava should have been nominated for via Best
That's correct.
Director,
She wasn't
and
nominated for it, was she?
no, she was not nominated.
But she won just about every other directing award that season,
Mhm,
except she
except
wasn't
for that.
nominated for this one.
And unfortunately, I don't know if you remember, this was 2015. If we can walk the clock back, unfortunately, with the low nominations, there was a hashtag that went very, very
Mm,
viral back then. It was Oscars
so
so
white,
white.
so white. And that was
and,
so right. That
and
was so right. I mean, undeniably, she had excelled among peers who were excellent. And
mhm,
that's the thing when you talk about art. It's like, who's the best artist? It's like, of course, that's subjective.
of course.
However, I think when you think about things now, it's a lot easier to figure out what the best movie of 2015 or 14 is now. Sometimes it's harder to do it in the moment, but when you add time to it, just like anything with history, it sort of susses out and weeds out things that aren't as interesting, that only were maybe a flash at that time. Like if we could go back, like Crash would have never gotten its Oscar, right? I mean, I
No.
think people would look back and say that that's one of the worst Best Picture wins ever. I mean, that movie is totally garbage. It's even hard to watch right now without being offended, 15 minutes in. So
Yeah.
I think that this is a movie that has stood the test of time. It has gotten better as each year has gone by, and it is something that really, I mean, really is an accomplishment. It will be, not to be morbid at all, but when the book is written on Ava DuVernay, this will be in like the first sentence, if not the second sentence. Oh, the director of Selma. It's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I know
And I don't know if you remember, unfortunately, this was around at the premiere, at the New York premiere of Selma. The actors, including Ava, wrote in protest, "I can't breathe" t-shirts to be in protest with what happened with Eric Garner. And he was murdered, a Staten Island resident. And so they said the members of the Academy called into the studio. Paramount was the studio that released uh, Selma, and said, how dare they do that? Why are they stirring mess? We're not going to vote. We're not going to vote for that film because we do not think it's their place to be doing that. Their place. Those words they're hurtful.
if I might, I'd like to take this time to kind of steer to the other elephant in the room when you're talking about women directing and Oscars.
Hmm.
Jane Champion.
Okay.
What was she smoking? For real. Do you know what I'm talking about, Val?
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about? So recently, Jane Champion, she's at the Critics' Choice Award on Sunday. She was nominated for Power of the Dog. She won the Best Director award, which is good, right? With what we're talking about in the podcast, you have this woman who directed a movie called Power of the Dog, which is probably one of the better movies made over the last year. She is a woman. She was also previously directed The Piano, so she is someone that has formidable talent. She's a great kind of artist in this way. Um, did you hear her comments, Val, that she made upon receiving that award? Oh, Val's gone. Okay. So, hi. So, if you heard her comments upon receiving that award, they were surprising, offensive, and really kind of stepped in it. So I will kind of break it down for you guys pretty quickly. So Jane Champion, she's 67-year old. She's from New Zealand. This filmmaker, wonderful filmmaker. But when she won, she talked about the fact that, and she looked out in the audience. See, the thing is, she looked out in the audience, and I don't understand what she was doing. But she saw Venus and Serena Williams, who were there because the movie that talks about their life and their life with their father, King Richard, was nominated. Will Smith, who will win the Best Actor award everywhere this year, he was there, and he eventually did go up for Best Actor. And he said, she said that that well, you all, Venus and Serena, you've done these wonderful things on the court against women, but I have to compete against men, and it's really hard for me. So my victory is really important because I'm in a field where I have to compete against men as a director in these categories. And it was such a hollow piece of trash what she said, that Jane Champion, the 67-year-old New Zealand woman, got who everywhere. People went after her, and they should have gone after her. They should have gone after her to the point that a joke by comedian Bill Burr has been all over Twitter, has been all over social media, and it was one of those times when the "I told you so" of the moment really rang true. Now, if you don't know who Bill Burr is, he's this comedian, and he's someone who is controversial himself. But he kind of talked about this joke, and I'll tell you what it is. He said on Saturday Night Live, like in 2020, he said, "I got to tell you, the way that white women somehow hijacked the woke movement," he said people should analyze this. And he talked about the fact that the so-called woke movement was supposed to be about people of color not getting opportunities, finally making things happen. He said, and it was for about 8 seconds. He said somehow white women swung their Gucci booted feet over the fence of oppression and stuck themselves in the front of the line, which is exactly what this woman does. She looks out at the beauty and the struggle and the success that Venus and Serena Williams had in life, not just tennis, but in life, and said, "Yeah, I know it must have been hard for you, but oh my God, I had to direct this movie, and it's up against male directors, so I have really done something here." And the slap that came for her couldn't have come harder. It could not have come harder. As Bill Burr continued, he said, like trashing white guys, he said, the nerve of you white women. Let's go back in history. He said, you guys have stood by toxic white guys through the centuries in the crimes against humanity. And that is true. That is true. Val the Voice Johnson started talking about voting rights among women. She's talking, yeah, it's supposed to be it's supposed to be about, yeah, yes, Mr. Lee. New Zealand is supposed to be a progressive country, and it is by our standards. If you compare it to the U.S., they do have women leadership. One of the women who was at the time a leader in New Zealand distinguished herself of course, in contrast to our former president. Around the time when the coronavirus came out, she did great leadership. This is not to disparage her in any way, but it is to say that there is this entitlement that sometimes people forget about. When you talk about the suffrage movement in America, you need to and should acknowledge in America that when women won the right to vote in 1920s, black women and women of color still could not vote. It meant that white women had received the right to vote. Susan B. Anthony received the right to vote. Other distinguished white women had done it. And they did it partially by selling out black women, like Ida B. Wells, who we talked about in a previous Interludes podcast. If you check out the last two Interludes podcasts, you will get a lot of excellent information and background here as we continue to march in Women's History Month. I mean, I think that we have done, and I credit Val in this, Val the Voice Johnson, in this way, kind of just putting it out there so that if you're interested in it, it's there for you. If you follow the podcast, the idea that this director, Jane Champion, could say something like that is not surprising. Yeah, and they were fine. Exactly. Exactly. And that's kryptonite to what was happening at the time, for sure. They were happy with it. They conceded, like, I can vote just like my husband can vote. White women said at that time. But if we clear this record, if we tell history accurately, then we can all move forward together as a country, as a people. I see I am rejoined by the host of Interludes. Hi. We got a little
Hi,
bit
can you
different
hear
look
me?
there.
Can you
You
hear
doing
me?
step changes? You got the Diana Ross of this? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you sing the song. Hey, Val, what's going on?
It's called The Computer Crashed. And what can I do?
Crash. That's a terrible movie. How could you say Crash? Oh, I love it. I love it. That's the one thing. Yeah, no matter what. See, the thing is, we got each other's back for sure. So, Val, I was telling people about this idea, and I don't know if you caught it. It was on the Critics' Choice Awards. It's one of those mini awards that kind of got slipped in at the end. Now that COVID protocols are falling, so Jane Champion won for Best Director. She takes
I
her
heard,
time
I
on the
heard.
microphone to give a what I guess she thought was a kind of like shout out to the Williams sisters in the audience, which turned into a kind of like backhanded compliment to say, you all compete against women, but I compete against men. And boy, let me tell you how hard this is. Her old privileged self, person that has been given like a budget to make a movie with Benedict Cumberbatch, with anybody would kill for, right, in film. So it's like, oh, it's so hard for me. But you young women, you just had to compete against women. I know that was easy. It's like, Jane, didn't you watch King Richard? Didn't you see the movie? If you'd only seen the movie, it would have made a lot more sense for you. And the look that Venus gives when they try, sadly, when they give that reaction shot of Venus Williams when she's watching her, it's like, oh boy, this ain't gonna work out well. Black Twitter's gonna take this and run, and they did, and they did.
Why would she
Woo!
say that?
Did
Why?
you hear about this?
I heard about that. And
I,
weren't
I,
we
I
just
saw it
giving
in
her
real
a
time.
compliment on the podcast?
What's that?
Weren't we just giving her a nice compliment on the
It
podcast?
We can do two things at the same time. They are not mutually exclusive, as someone reminded me of yesterday. You can do two things at the same time. You can walk and chew gum. So we gonna chew the gum over this and walk right past this ignorance. Okay, she made an excellent film, and she should be given credit for that. But she also should be acknowledged when she steps in it. Now, the filmmaker, to her credit, Jane, to her credit, issued an apology on Monday because she, I guess she woke up, her phone must have blew up after that. And she said, quote, I made a thoughtless comment equating what I do in the film world with all that Serena Williams and Venus Williams have achieved. I did not intend to devalue these two legendary black women
But you
and
did.
world class athletes,
But you
said
did.
in the statement, and that's from the Hollywood Reporter. It continues. It says the fact is that that the Williams sisters have actually squared off against men eh, on the court and off, which I'll get back to in a second. And they have both raised the bar and opened doors for what is possible for women in this world. The last thing I would ever want to do is minimize remarkable women. I love Serena and Venus. Their accomplishments are titanic and inspiring. Serena and Venus, I apologize and completely celebrate you. So I gotta say, this is where she differentiates among men that would say something that's stupid. She actually gave a real apology. She didn't say like, "I'm sorry if what you thought I said offended you."
That's nuts. That's
She did not give
absolutely
a
nuts.
real apology on it. She did actually give a real apology. So that's a good thing. That's a good start. Okay. And I hope that we will be able to accept her and not banish her or try to banish her like we did Whoopi a few weeks ago. Okay. So accept it. The woman said something stupid. She got clapped back quick, and now she knows that she was wrong
Mm-hmm.
for it. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that to the larger point of March being Women's History Month, I joked about this with you last week, Val, is that what I do if I have a classroom at the time, a physical classroom, I will put up pictures of extraordinary black women in February, women of color in February, and just keep them up for an extra month through March. It's Black History Month and it's Women's History Month. Because as she famously said, hopefully y'all know who she is, ain't I a woman?
Yeah.
Ain't I a woman?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I'm sitting here when I was crashing, I was able to hear you on one of my other apps that was
Ooh, okay.
I was able to hear you, and I was just like, did she say that for real? And then I
Yeah,
remember
she
that
did.
it hit the news, and I was just thinking it was her. You just confirmed what I was
Yeah, she
hearing
was.
that had happened.
Just don't know. I mean, and we call that ignorance, right? I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
just don't know. I don't think she was trying to say something that was disparaging to them. She was trying to acknowledge that they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that people don't understand what privilege is, what their privilege is, and what it yeah. Oh, so somebody know ain't I a woman? Thank you, Mr. Lee. Exactly. Ain't I a woman? I mean, come on. There's mules and men. This is why we should study history. This is why we should study all of our history together so that we understand it, that we get it for sure. So, so Val, you wanted to talk about some things going on TV. I got a TV show for you, but let's start with yours. Something that you've seen that's pretty positive, that is that gives us a break from some of these other things going on in the world.
Yeah. Let me do this.
Yes, go right ahead. Woo! Woo! The sorcery. Purple smoke.
It's amazing what you
Yes,
can
Mr.
do with
Lee, one of my
technology.
favorite authors who I will reference often. One of my favorite authors who I will reference often. Someone who I've studied and considered maybe going back to school and getting some of those papers on, because I know enough about her. But yes, yes, that was magical, smooth. What was that transition? That transition was smooth.
I wanted to talk about Grand Crew.
Yes. Fine
And
show about wine. Yes.
yeah, so I see what the issue is. Okay, that is cool. All right. Uh, so Grand Crew is a show that comes on NBC, and Phil Augusta, and I'm missing the last name because my notes crashed too, so I can't see my notes.
I can help you out there.
Can you help me out with the notes?
Yeah.
There you go.
Uh, if it's there, I can go right to it. Okay.
Yeah,
So
just
you're
go
talking
right
about
back to it.
Grand Crew
Mm-hmm.
on NBC. It's also streaming on Peacock. That's where you find the secondary showings of it. Um, Phil Augusta Jackson,
Yes, Jackson.
who wrote for Insecure,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and Key and Peele. And his latest offering is on NBC. It is a show that has been slowly gaining wider audiences. It's getting bigger and bigger. We, to our credit, talked about it when it first came out and noticed how it was very interesting. Um, Val, what do you think of the show? Tell us more about it.
I it's around four or five friends. Two are brother and sister, and they kind of frequent this wine bar, and it's very classy. It's what you would remember seeing from, let's say, Friends, what say, I don't know, Insecure, and any other of the sitcoms, but clever writing. Just some things that I've noticed with Insecure and some other shows that he's written for, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you see the twist coming and you're like, wait a minute, it's a comedy, but it's funny. And I've been getting a kick out of how they, present their dating life. There's a couple on here that's married, and how the woman is a boss, and one is kind of, at the home with the kids, and he's trying to be man. He's trying to be a man to do that. But in between, while they go through their struggles, one person was dating someone, then he stopped dating someone, and then he was depressed, and they were criticizing him. But it was just good to see, Black professionals, young professionals, enjoying alcohol without being drunk or crazy, or whatever you want to call it, and just doing their thing. And I really enjoyed the last couple of episodes. I think they're up to 10 or 12 episodes right now. I was looking for it tonight. I didn't see it, but I believe it's been renewed for a second season. So that's exciting.
Yes.
And I'm excited for the cast, and NBC is stand up, because the gentleman, he's cut his teeth on writing for Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Insecure, and I think, what's the other one? There's one other real famous one that he's written for. So he's created this show. This is his baby, and let's go. And I
Survivor's
and I
Remorse.
noticed nobody that's acting in this. No one has their age up at all. All millennials are not putting up their age at all. They're like, no, I was born and I've done these roles, and that's it. You don't have to know how old I am. Everybody that's a Gen Xer, they got their age up, but anybody anybody born after 1980, no, we ain't putting the age up at all.
Can I confess how sexy Nicole Byer is to me? Because in how I don't understand why. I not that I don't understand why. It's just that it doesn't. It's not the first thing that jumps out, but she is. Um, that girl. I have a weakness for comedians, I guess. She is so funny, and the role that she plays is kind of this kind of uninhibited sort of lady. It's just wonderful on this show, which I think that of the various characters, a lot of them it relies on the writing. It's very strong. It's got great writing, and the characters come through the way they're fully developed. But I think Nicole is just on there. I mean, I don't know if you need to write for her. like I think she comes into it as in like shining star, and not to say she deviates from it, but a lot of comedians, I mean, if you just give them the framework to work in, they can just kind of go for it.
Yeah.
So Grand Crew has been developing. It kind of imagines things. It talks about the fact and jokingly like, wine is a black thing now. We're claiming wine. We're claiming wine bars, and kind of relaxing, and that sort of level of luxury, and just the idea of it. I think, if you want to get a little bit deeper in it, is that you have people who aren't so frazzled day to day, that aren't running through such high levels of trauma, and just daily survival mode, that you can sit back, unwind, relax with your friends, and sort of enjoy parts of life. And maybe that's the secret formula with NBC. NBC has never been able to produce any other type of black show, but this is kind of a black show that they seem to be well equipped to do. The comedian whose name we will not mention, in his show about families and African American families, seemed to do some of the same things. And he kind of gave you a different view on the African American experience. And this is one that's not controversial, that's
No.
not highly political, it doesn't
No.
go into any of that. It just shows people living life. And
Yeah.
in that way, it is notable and it's great. I enjoy it too.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the following season, and I'm glad that we got a chance to really highlight it and talk about it. We mentioned it briefly and in passing because the show literally comes on 30 minutes before we go live. But we love the show, and Phil, great job over there. Great job.
Yeah, and another show that you should be checking out on demand, because it bumps up against us at times, is Abbott Elementary,
Yes.
which has been also renewed for a second season. They put out a very humorous post on social media of the principal, the fictional principal of the show, saying that she's become so popular that she invited the camera crew back in for a second year, which is a delightful show, Abbott Elementary, that talks about an inner city school and the challenges that the teachers face to try to meet the needs of their students and the students' families. And Quinta Brunson, who is the showrunner and the star of the show, she was someone that graduated from like the Black Lady Sketch Comedy Show, and she's done
Hmm.
some other things. She was also involved with Insecure. I guess everybody was coming through right now, right? That's one of those proving grounds for sure. The show I want to mention, Val, that's not on there, so I'm throwing you another curveball, is this. I see what Kevin said. I'll get to Kevin's in a second. All right. The show that I want to mention is this. It's a sports show, so we'll get to it. I was going to hopefully get to it a little bit later, but we might have to just jump to it right now. And that is a show called Game Theory with Bomani Jones. Now,
Okay.
if you like sports, then you probably have watched ESPN and every other ESPN product over the last 10 years. And if you have, then you probably recognize the name Bomani Jones. He's a brother. And as a brother, like me, I'm covering up part of mine who has a really huge forehead. He's hilarious. His latest kind of state that we've seen him in on television was just recently with Bob Costas on Bob Costas' relaunch HBO effort. And Bomani Jones has been one of the people that Bob Costas was smart enough to put on his show because he knows that he is a voice. And now Bomani has his own show that
Oh.
debuted on this past Sunday on HBO. It's called Game Theory with Bomani Jones. It's on Sunday at 11, and it was hilarious. It talked about, so we're going to transition, I know, to the NCAA tournament in a second. It talked about Mike Krzyzewski, and it
Okay.
did it from an African American point of view, which
Oh.
was awesome. So if you don't know, Val, in terms of college basketball, Mike Krzyzewski is one of the most winningest coaches. Coach K. The thing about Coach K is that no one outside of Grant Hill's family who is black likes Coach K. He
Yikes.
is his. Oh, oh yeah.
Yikes.
No, it's justified because
Okay.
we have witnessed for decades Coach K and his seemingly all white, except for one, teams with Duke destroy black excellence on the basketball court. We've seen it with UNLV teams
Okay.
that should have won championships that got interrupted by Duke. We've seen it with Kentucky Wildcat teams that should have got won championships with Christian Leitner stepped his big white foot on their chest. We saw it for many years. Okay, nobody likes Coach K, and so when Coach
Nobody?
K, nobody who is black. If you heard on the last week, I know Val, you heard about Coach K's last game in Duke, right?
Yeah, I did.
Even you couldn't avoid that. And you don't follow sports in that way. You
I
know
don't.
why? Because he is the great white hope, okay, of college basketball. He produced teams with these busted, bust down. Did he find them on the street corner? White kids taught them to dribble and shoot, and they would find a single score, and they would do horrific things in the tournament, like win. They would win, and they would win
You say
constantly.
horrific things like
Just
win, like they
like
shouldn't be
winning.
winning. Like they
Yes.
shouldn't be winning. They should.
No, they had no right to win.
Oh, they had
He
no
was
right to
playing
win because
teams
they were
that were
being
pretty
coached
much
by
loaded
Coach
up.
K.
He played teams that were pretty much loaded up with future NBA All Stars, and somehow he would get these slack white boys to go. Oh yes, they did. And this is one of the things celebrated on Game Theory with Bobani Jones is
Wow.
that, oh, ouch, Coach K lost his last game in Cameron Indoor. That was so sad. No, it wasn't. It was justified, okay? That was the ghost of the Kentucky player who got stepped on by Christian Leitner, finally getting some revenge on that man. Coach K from Chicago.
Hmm.
Smash the like button if you like it. Hopefully, yes, Carolina embarrassed him. Mr. Lee also pointed out the fact that what about his black players? So,
Oh.
Game Theory, to its credit, and you can find it on HBO Max on demand, talks about some of those black players
Oh
and
no.
how Coach K simply had to adapt to the times, just like Alabama did eventually in football, to bring on some of these players. Not because he wanted to, it's just that he needed to do it to survive. He knew that that was the only way to win in a changing NCAA. And so,
Wow.
yes, there was this flurry of black players who, to my dismay, seemingly all were at some point drafted by the Bulls. I don't know what they were thinking, because these were college players, just not NBA players at all. Anyway, with the exception of Grant Hill. Grant Hill. So this was just horrific, horrific. So God bless him. He's going away. College basketball will be all the better for it without Coach K and this kind of idea of white supremacy that he either wittingly or unwittingly promoted during his time. So the show is called Game Theory. It talks about sports, but it talks about sports in relationship to life and kind of a black experience of sports. The first guest was Stephen A. Smith, who, if you know who Stephen A. Smith is,
Oh
right?
yeah, I know him. I know
Oh
him.
my God, there was so much African American testosterone in that interview with Bomani and Stephen A. You know that that was like crazy to hear the two of them talk about sports in a sort of like I don't really care. I cover this. These athletes have this idea of self importance that they need to like lose. They do a job, they do a service, they do work just like everybody else does work. And it just so happens that we enjoy watching them work. And it's awesome. It is awesome. So it's a good show. It's a good show to check out. It's called Game Theory with Omani Jones. It's on HBO Max. Comes on Sunday nights. late, so I would say catch it on demand
Okay.
rather than
And I
staying up late to watch it.
and I saw the other series that started on HBO Max that talked about the Lakers.
Winning time.
Winning time. That was fun. That was a fun situation to watch. I think the
And that show
second
does the
episode
same
came
thing.
on Sunday, huh?
And that show has a similar perspective. It
Yeah,
kind of deconstructs what was happening then. And to its
had no
credit,
idea.
the latest episode talks about how the Lakers started to lay the groundwork for their dynasty by reaching out or trying to reach out. Dr. Jerry Buss tries to reach out to Red Auerbach, who is the doyen of the Boston Celtics. He is the dean. He is the man of the Celtics legacy. And the Celtics, I mean, even he knew that he was basing that off of this sort of subtle, sort of racist sort of idea of Boston, and I have Larry Bird, and I have this star, and this star gives me this certain cachet. And when Bus takes Magic Johnson, he fully embraces, or seemingly the way the story is told, that he is embracing that he is going into celebrity. He's going to embrace Magic Johnson as a personality, that he wants his players who are African American to allow their personalities to shine. And in that way, I don't know if do you remember the 80s as this, Val? That there were two teams. There was the Celtics and there was the Lakers. And if
It
you were
was kind of
black, you liked the Lakers almost by default.
I was by default because I didn't really know Boston and I didn't that was the whole thing. I never got the whole battle. I just knew that no one was talking about Chicago because that went on
Pre
between
Jordan, right.
yeah, because Jordan came into the league in the middle of
Right.
their battle, and I didn't know it started as early. The show it's called Game Time, right?
Yes. Winning time.
Oh,
Winning
winning
time.
time, winning
Yeah,
time.
because when the Lakers came out, it was showtime, so it's time to win. Winning time.
So I'm gonna
And the
put that
Lakers,
in.
that's where we get the idea, we get the terms three-peat. That comes from Pat Riley, three-peat.
Okay.
We get Purple Rain because at the time the Lakers were ascending was the same time that Prince was ascending, and the Lakers colors were yellow and purple. So we got purple REIGN, Purple Rain, for those Laker teams, those early Laker teams. And it almost was. It was kind of like, well, it was a Rorschach test on basketball. Like, do you like
Mhm.
the Lakers or do you like the Celtics? Because you had to have an opinion. Because as the documentary, as this movie, I should say documentary, but this kind of fiction, semi-fictional account of what's going on, it'll lead us into this time when they're the two teams. They keep coming up, in the championship. So even if you follow basketball casually and you just drop in to the finals, you're likely going to see the Lakers and the Celtics,
That's how
just
it
about
was in
every
the
year.
80s. That's how it was in the 80s with those
Early
two
80s.
teams.
Absolutely.
Early 80s. That was going back and forth. And it's interesting to see what the relationship was between the new owner who took over and a very young Irving Magic Johnson. And I
Mhm.
think it wait a minute, wasn't Philly in that same time frame, maybe even Detroit, probably
Um,
later 80s,
so
later
sort of,
80s.
Mr.
Sorta?
Lee. So Philly comes in. Yeah, they have Moses, they have Dr. J.
Mhm.
They're formidable, but I mean, coming out of the East, the Celtics came out of the East most of the time. Detroit comes in later on. Detroit becomes more a nemesis in the Eastern Conference
Okay.
for the Bulls. Detroit does make it, of course. They do get they get their time in the spotlight. Magic and Isaiah have a very interesting relationship between the two of them. But really, if you're talking about what the NBA develops, and you see a very young David Stern in winning time, um, he figures out that he can sell this league as a Magic versus Bird league, and
Yep.
they need it. at the very beginning, people, younger people may not even think of this, but there was a time when you couldn't watch live basketball, live NBA basketball. That the NBA was such a third and fourth tier sport that it was shown on TV on tape delay. They would show games that had happened already on
That's crazy.
CBS and,
That's
and on other
crazy.
stations because it wasn't worth showing it live. Okay, yes. Okay, so he says, don't forget early Milwaukee. Yeah, you're talking about when Kareem was still there, right? As Lou Alcindor before he
He's got to
goes
be.
west. I
He's
mean,
got to be.
Milwaukee is. We want to talk about the Bulls with Reggie Theus. I mean, that's like we could talk about it, but I wouldn't. I think that some of the really interesting things is the fact that they begin to sell this league, and they figure it out. What's the formula? This great white player, this great black player who just meet up again once again. It's like almost like a heavyweight fight each year, ending in the finals, and that's what makes it really. It's a good show. So Val, have you? So what have you thought of it? What are your kind of thoughts on it?
I'm I'm loving learning about the backstory of what was happening behind and I totally forgot about the gentleman, the coach, a very angry coach, and who is the NBA,
Oh,
uh,
Jerry West.
Jerry West.
No, this
Total,
is all. Well, you forgot. This has all
totally
been
forgot.
making news as this show has been coming out. Winning time. Sports writers have been scrambling, writing stories about it. It's like, did Jerry West really not want to draft Magic Johnson? And it turns out that that was what was in the book that the series is based off of.
Hmm.
And from all reports, the two of them, Jerry West and Magic Johnson, have a good relationship now. But at the time, he didn't want to draft him. He thought that this other player, Sidney Moncrief, would have given the Lakers a better chance. He was more of a traditional player. To his credit, Magic Johnson changes basketball and probably doesn't get enough credit for it now in a post Jordan world, but he changes that position. He brings height to what we would think of as a point guard. I'm not going to step in the person that isn't here today. I ain't going to step in his lane. But, but but Magic brings height to that position that hadn't been there, and even Jerry West couldn't have predicted where we were going with it because he didn't see it at the time. So, yeah, Magic playing that position, which he eventually does, changes basketball. It makes it different. It makes it special. It makes it more of an athletic game than it previously was. There were people that could get by just on hard work, could no longer do so. You had to have skills to play against a Magic Johnson.
Yeah. So, like I said, it that's a great. Those are two great shows currently on HBO Max streaming, and the new episodes are released every Sunday.
Yes, they are. Yeah. In the
Okay.
chat, there was a mention of something. I want to see because I can get to it
Mark
very
probably said
quickly. Very
something. Mark
quickly.
Peacock has a new show called Bust
Woo!
Down. I don't know
Oh
that one.
my.
I don't know that one.
I do.
Is
I
it
fell down that rabbit hole, Mr. Springer. So,
okay?
oh my goodness. Not safe for work, not safe for children, not a kids show, an adult show, adult language, adult situations.
Okay,
Uh,
I'm going to be
very
avoiding
funny.
that one, so
Very
we can just
funny.
take that
Very
on off the
funny.
screen.
Just mentioning it. Very funny, though. Very funny. But
and I
but
did,
but very odd.
and I did
For
want to,
sure.
and I did want to mention that I am truly enjoying Bel-Air on Peacock. I am having a blast with the Michael Ealy situation. Kevin sent me a text and was like, "Did you see this episode with Michael Ealy trying to push up on Aunt Viv?" And I'm loving it. I'm like, this drama, just dramatized version of Bel Air has thoroughly entertained me. So I don't know if they're doing either 8 episodes or 10, but I can't get enough. They just keep them coming, keep them coming.
All right. And on that note, some positivity for sure. It is the truth right now. So, despite the technical difficulties and the wonderful things and the curveballs that always happen to make life interesting, I can tell you that my name is not Val the Voice Johnson, but your name is, and this has been Interludes Extra. Hey, what you got? What you got, Val?
Stop.
Time out.
Stop.
Time out on the court.
Stop.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're gonna do is preview tomorrow's show.
We have a show tomorrow?
We have a show tomorrow. Oh my gosh,
What?
you're hilarious.
Whose show?
We're going to be talking with Cynthia McAllister. She is the founder and creator of a network business app called KeySpot. And she's the founder of Quality SAP. And then, of course, before we drop the podcast, something happens before that. What happens, Michael?
I don't know what happened. What had happened?
This happens. You show up and we have Wamble, hashtag Wamble Wednesdays. It's Wamble time.
It is. It is.
Yeah. It is Wamble time. So we definitely have to do that. So that'll be tomorrow. You can check us out there, and we'll be dropping the podcast right after your simulcast.
Yes, and tomorrow I will be giving you a bracket that you will want to take notes of. For entertainment purposes only, I will give you a bracket that you will want to pay attention to. An NCAA March Madness bracket tomorrow on WW Wamble Wednesday.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jimmy, letting me know that you and your wife are enjoying Bel-Air. That's exciting. And Kevin also said that Power Force has been renewed for
Oh my goodness.
season.
Oh my goodness. I'm finding free episodes, allegedly finding free episodes of it, though I don't have stars. And it's been really good. It's really good. For sure.
Because Tommy ain't got no sense.
Tommy is oh my! I like
it. But he was that crazy on the first original.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch those now.
You gotta watch Power. If you don't understand, if you see the it's 6 seasons though, but if you see him on there, and Joseph Sikora is from Chicago. I am so proud of him as an actor.
I was up 3-0.
What happened?
I guess I'm up 6-0 now.
It is no joke. So, but that's also an adult show too. You can't be watching that with your children. So there you go. So
Tommy who? Tommy who? Who is the Tommy?
I know.
And who are you talking about?
And before we go ahead. Thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast channel, YouTube channel, go ahead and do so. And then tonight, we want to let you know that tonight's episode is sponsored by NBN Connect. It's the Matthew Business Network. And now you can say your line.
What line?
What's your name? What is your name, Michael?
My name is not Val the Voice Johnson, but yours is, and this has been Interludes Extra. Talk on Tuesday with Val the Voice Johnson.
And with
Grand crew.
And with that, everyone have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we'll see you next week. Peace.